What is going on? Eric Bach here, your host of the Eric Bach Show. And today, my good friend Jeb Stuart Johnston is going to be breaking down how to stop emotional eating. Jeb is an absolute whiz when it comes to not just nutrition, but understanding the mindset behind it. He's a national board certified health and wellness coach with over a decade in the industry and has been truly transformative in terms of helping people understand emotional eating recovery and mindset first, not just calories in, calories out. He also hosts the Food on the Mind podcast, where he helps listeners break free from the cycle of food obsession through emotional regulation, tools, and self-leadership. In addition to that, getting to know Jeb over the last year or so, more specifically after being acquaintances in the fitness industry for a decade, has been an absolute joy. He brings a ton of wisdom, both in terms of life, but also specifically coaching. And I think you're going to get a ton of value directly from this episode. With that said, Jeb, welcome, my man. Jeb, so happy to have you here, brother. Now, I was just thinking about this. Like, we should actually really be doing this in person, probably with a burger.
I know,
because
right?
We're like 12 miles away from each other. But for those of you listening in, Jeb and I live fairly close by. Jeb is in North Charleston. I'm in Mount Pleasant. So, yeah, what are we, 10, 12 miles away? We like to get together. We need to do it more often.
Yeah.
We say this via text or IG like 4 times a week. But yeah, man, great to connect here.
I mean, the funny thing is, when I lived in New York, it's like friends of mine who lived like a block away, I wouldn't see for like a month. Like, it's like getting older. It's so much harder to like just schedule something as simple as lunch. It's like, oh, what do you got? You got Friday at noon? Oh, actually, this Friday I can't. Next Friday, I'm like,
look at us both right now too. I'm like, do I have to wear sleeves and go somewhere, or like, I don't know.
Dude, in Charleston, do you ever have to wear sleeves? I mean, honestly, I've been to dinner at places and like rolled in with a tank top and no one cares.
So Charleston's weird in this because like you kind of either look like a failed pro golfer.
Yeah.
There's that look.
Yep.
There's also like, I don't know, am I kind of a hunter? Like, what's going on here?
Yep.
And then.
But you drive a $100,000 lifted truck that has never done a day of work in its life.
Oh my God, don't even get me started on that. And you back into the parking lot with a 7-point turn at Whole Foods. Like, what are we even doing here? What the fuck is this? But I'm sure every place has those components. But really what I want to dig into here is emotional eating. If there's anything that I view you to be world-class at explaining and really get down into root causes, is understanding emotions, is understanding how people develop maybe some of these habits and issues that can really manifest into a lot of long-term health issues. And so, man, the first thing I want to ask you is like, what got you involved in really becoming a master of understanding emotional eating and what leads people to get stuck in these cycles of food obsession?
Well, I mean, I probably have to take it back to like kind of my entire move into fitness, right? I didn't start in this industry. I was, started off, I was an actor, musician, ended up being a bartender, ran some nightclubs. Then my wife told me you need to get a real job when we started dating if you want to stay around, so I became a hairdresser. Which allowed me to still play music. It was a good deal. And then I kind of, the hairdressing, I was working in New York at a kind of celebrity supermodel salon where it was like all fashion, doing like photo shoots and things, in all cases, like kind of killing it. It was becoming very successful, super, proud of my work, but it was totally empty. And I really got into lifting. Now, I played football in high school. I was athletic, but I never really had a structured lifting program. God, I wish I had, because turns out I have pretty good genetics for lifting. I mean, my uncle played, Division I football under Marv Levy at the hell was that school in Williamsburg, Virginia? Even Mary. Yeah. My dad played basketball at Duke. My family's boxers. And I didn't start lifting until I was 33 on any kind of scheduled program. And in my 30s, I was about 146 pounds. I got up to, my biggest was about 215. So, putting on, 60 some pounds of muscle in your 30s is like not common. Like every fit pro that's like, I have terrible genetics. Here's me at 16 and here's me at 20. I'm like, I have no, these people are full. Like I have good
you
genetics.
Hit puberty,
I don't lie about it. It's like, my brother's the same way. He can bulk up, slim down. It's like, we're very easily, but, I got into lifting, and I got into lifting really because I went to rehab at 33, and I was there for 4 months, and you'll probably remember this, the Dragon Door book, Convict Conditioning, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna be in here for a while. Like I want to start lifting. I just taken my first jiu-jitsu class like 2 weeks before I went to rehab. I was like, ooh, this would be cool. So came out, got into starting strength, and then I got one of I got a Zach Evanesh program, which came with a Jay Ferrugia diet in the back. Did that. I messaged him on Facebook, and then I joined his inner circle, which was probably $5 a month or something.
God, what a great place, by the way. Can we shout out to the foundational guys for strength and conditioning, putting out that high quality info?
Oh yeah, and back then it was all affiliate marketing, so you would get looped into all of them. So through Jay, I met I've met a bunch of cool people, but I met who became one of my best friends and really kind of this my training partner was a guy Sean Heisen. Long story short, I got really into training, and it became a big part of my life. And so then I became a trainer, mainly because I was out to dinner with him and Ben Bruno, and Ben Bruno was like, "Why don't you just train people if you like it?" And I was like, "I never thought about that." So it's simple. Like, why don't you do something you like? And so I got into trading, and I was really into nutrition. Always have been. It's been something I've really been into. And so then I became, I ended up doing nutrition on the side of people. Started to work for Stronger You, my friend Mike Dola, and really dove in. And then I started to see the issues with kind of how we were doing. Like, right, we thought that macros were going to save the world. We thought flexible dieting was going to be like, this is it. Like, oh, we finally found the thing. And it
Yeah.
turns out that people are going to people, and everyone just turned it into another restrictive diet. And I was like, now this isn't working. So what is this? And so I would tell the assistant, the people that we were all booking, I would be like, give me the clients no one else wants. Like, giving people macros is fucking
I
boring.
love that.
Yeah, I was like, give me all the hard cases. And I started to realize there was a lot of emotion behind that. And so I started to think like, well, how can I affect change? Because it's not working just giving them a program. What is getting in the way? And that's the thing is like, people are like, oh, macros, like, or diets, calories in, calories. No, these things all work. The problem is, how do you get people to do it? And so that became the impetus. And I think back to my earlier story, the reason I brought up rehab is I saw qualities in the people that were really struggling that were very similar to the same things that I went through in trying to get clean from alcohol in particular. There was lots of drugs in there too, but those were just side fun things. The alcohol was the problem. So so I saw these similarities and I said, like, okay, what can I do? Who can I work with? And again, it just evolved. I mean, again, I think all of us started out like, oh, I want to work with athletes. And I was already working with celebrities. I was like, this is a perfect segue. I can work with celebrities in fitness. But no, I work with primarily middle-aged women and some middle-aged men who struggle with, emotional eating. And I love it. It's my passion now. But again, I think, if we're talking to like young fitness professionals, is like, don't think that what you think you're going to do is like cast a wide net and let the net figure out what you are going to do, because that will become your passion. If you become good at something, you will be passionate about it. I promise.
That is so true. And I feel like, it's been such a growth, and we've talked about this in private, but there's been such a growth in terms of like the business aspect and the marketing aspect, particularly in the fitness industry. Whereas, I mean, historically speaking, right, we talk about like the affiliate marketing phase that was back. And before that, I mean, God, what was even before that? But point being is like we run through these different phases, and as marketing has gotten better, some of the old issues with like the quote unquote snake oil, kind of idea have been proliferated at mass, particularly with social media. And now I almost feel that a lot of young coaches put out this information that they don't even realize how fucked up it is, right? And how incorrect it is, or how much it lacks context, because they do not have that experience of what it's like to actually, one, be an adult, but also work with a lot of people and understand that there are layers to it. I often like to say that like data eliminates drama, but there's also an aspect of like data doesn't tell all, because humans are going to human. And that's something you say consistently, right? And where a lot of people, I think, get stuck, particularly with fat loss, and this ties into emotional eating, is they try to break everything down to a math equation. If I eat this and I do this, I will get X, Y, and Z result at this particular rate. And if I don't, I feel like a failure. And then I get stuck in the cycle of fuck it, why bother, so to speak, often what happens with food. And then we start to really develop these patterns that lead people to feel, frankly, apathetic when it comes to their health and to their wellness, right? And so tying that all together, I mean, you often say it's not always about food and emotional eating. Like, let's elaborate on that. Let's break that idea down a little bit further.
Well, and anyone who's been friends with me for a long time or followed me in any capacity will see that like I'm like, I do this thing where I pick a focus of study and I go deep and just get like immersed in it, and then just drown in it, and then come out of it and say like, all right, now let's look, where are the downsides? What are the things that I can take away this, drive it, bring it into my model? And so over the years, I started when I really started developing in this emotional eating thing, I started working with my mentor, Lisa Lewis. She's married to Tony Gentilcore. She's a psychologist. And so she's very familiar with the fitness industry. So I went to a conference she was speaking at and said, hey, I want to work with you. She's like, I don't do that. I was like, let's figure it out. And so this is probably 7 or 8 years ago. And so I've been working with her every 2 weeks, and so she's helped me kind of mine out the behavioral things that kind of work for me. And so in my work, I have a lot of friends that are definitely, most of my friends are not into the quote unquote psychological side. They're all in the physiological. And but at the end of the day, all roads lead to Rome. It's all the same. And so a lot of my friends have always been really into, like, a good friend of mine is Mike T. Nelson, who kind of is the, the
Yeah.
father of HRV stuff and physiological kind of adaptations. And my personal coach, Dylan Seeley, he's all into, like, vagal nerve. He's, a lot of that stuff. And so I got into polyvagal theory, which is basically the physiological driver for psychology. So the reason I bring that up is something you said that I really liked, was this idea that people feel apathetic or they feel like they're a math equation. And it's true that you do these things, you will get certain outputs. But what we have to understand is part of the reason that we don't do the thing is because our bodies at the end of the day are just going to search for safety. Right. And we live in this world, and especially the people you work with, right? You work with a lot of I work with the same type of people, high performing people that their entire lives, it's like, just work harder and it always works out. And then they run into this thing where it's like, I'm trying more, I'm trying harder, and I'm failing worse. And I'm not good at this. And in my life, I've always been good at everything. So it's like the all or nothing. Again, everyone talks about all or nothing as it's a bad thing. It's like, no, that's probably why you're successful, because you learn to put all your effort into the highest ROI, which was these things that you're good at, because you realize spending time on something I'm not good at is not going to help me get to the thing. And so when they approach something where they're not good at it, it's like, like I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
And you probably see it all the time. And so part of our job as coaches is how can we build up that confidence slowly? And like, and that's why, like, people want to, the small habits. It's not about like you can't handle it. It's like we need to build up your confidence and build up the ability to do the work. And then you start seeing results, and then the motivation becomes internalized, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. And like, oh, this is, I feel better, and like all these things.
Yeah.
And that, but we have to get there. So kind of to your point is like the issue that a lot of people run into is that they are trying to change their physiological state, how they feel, reduce the anxiety through these controlled mechanisms, when in reality, if we can manage that physiological state first, those pieces, the food, all those things become much easier, because we will always make decisions biologically first. And I tell my clients all the time, like, if you don't regulate your biology, that's fine, but it's going to do it for you. Injury, shutdown, burnout, whatever you want to call it. Like, you'll see these things happen for people who just try to run at red line all the time. And that's most of the people we work with, because they've been able to do it.
Yeah. That's most of us.
Well, yeah. I mean, why do we work with the people we work with? There's a very clear reason. It's very clear.
Yeah, no doubt. That really stands out, right? Like, and you mentioned the small habits component as well. Mm-hmm. So let's say you have somebody who is a high performer, and they say, Jeb, I want to work with you directly because I'm struggling to really find a sustainable approach to improving my health. And I really struggle with food. It's something I use as a coping mechanism when I'm tired, when I'm stressed out. Where would you begin in terms of starting to shift some of those small habits and building momentum?
So, a big thing that I focus on heavily is this idea of approach goals and additive things, right? I think part of the failure that people have in goal acquisition or even skill acquisition is, it's that New Year's resolution problem. Why does everyone fail at the New Year's resolution? Because they're like, I'm going to stop doing this. No, you're not. Maybe not. And part of the reason is we can go back to like the physiology of it. Like, to create a habit creates myelination, a myelin sheath around neurotransmitters that is there, and it doesn't go away. So we don't actually get rid of bad habits. We just have to create new ones that overtake those old ones. And there's always going to be recidivism. Any kind of behavior change, you're going to slip back at some point. That's how, if you look at the trans-theoretical model of change, like when you get around to sustainable action and you're able to maintain, the next step is recidivism. And that doesn't mean you start over. It just means that you take a couple steps back. My argument to people all the time is that, hey, that's a good thing, because you've now, like, that term, like, leveled up, right? And so now your new floor might be where your ceiling was. So when you fall down, it just gives you an opportunity to practice these new skills. Because if you don't practice them, you're not going to be able to maintain them. And so that recidivism is actually a good thing. And the feeling is like, oh, I just fell down, I'm starting over. It's like, oh, you're not. You've gone 10 steps up the floor and you just took 2 steps back. That's fine, because now you feel like you suck it in. I do jujitsu, and I love the kind of martial arts piece of, like, every time you get, like, the cool thing about jujitsu is the better you get, the worse you are.
Yeah.
It's like
you don't know what you don't know until you get your ass kicked again,
And so
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, how am I so much worse at this than I was 10 years ago? You're like, you're not. You're way better. You're incredibly better. But it feels like I just like don't know anything. And that's the same thing with any skill acquisition. You get better, you level up, you're at a new plateau. And we live in plateaus, but we move through these like little peaks and valleys throughout. So that first habit is like, it depends totally contextually on the client, but it might be, I mean, there's some people that, and again, we forget what we have learned over the years. It's like, there's some people where it's like their minds were blown when I put something together that said like eat slowly. I was like, I honestly never thought of saying that because I thought that was so just basic knowledge, but it's not. So it could be that. It could be like, I've become really big into grounding, breath work. I say rituals. Like people always talk, everyone wants to shit on morning routines now because these weird guys do it. But like, why would you not? Like, why would you not create a ritual to mark the passage of time every morning? And it doesn't have to be, I always say ritual over rules, right? Like these aren't rules but there should be an intention, right? I like to move first thing in the morning. It might be jujitsu, it might be going for a walk, but some type of movement. Obviously we have our own rituals that we all do. Like I get my coffee, like all the things, walk the dog, whatever. And then I like to add on like, what is your pre-work ritual to get you ready for the day? What is your post-work ritual to close that computer and be able to be present with your family? And then what is your pre-bed ritual in order to kind of shut the day down to let yourself go to sleep? And this is all just regulating the nervous system. So it could be as simple as that. But I like to start with like, what's a couple things we can do to add onto your morning because like how many people do you work with where it's like, what's your first thing you do in the morning? It's like, well, I'll go check my email or my phone. It's like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea to start your day that way.
I check the YouTube comments and the comments on my ads if I want to start off with a really terrible mood. Literally what I did yesterday, I'm like, oh shit, I can't do that again.
No, right? Like so, but now if you did that, if you had gotten up, like gone out, gotten a little sunlight in your eyes, walked around in the grass in bare feet. I know this all sounds like hippie, but it works. And then came in and then checked it. You're like, well, whatever. Like this doesn't bother me. Like it's fine. This is the thing.
Totally. I feel like we have to proactively do things to reduce stress in the modern environment and to really take control and create this nervous system shift. Or again, your biology will take over and all of a sudden you'll find yourself doing things that are probably more reactive in nature. And you're like, why did I do that thing? Whether it's food, whether it's like, some other impulse to take control, whatever it is. I think that's where people get really stuck. And what you mentioned about the morning routines really sticks out because maybe it was like the growth early on when I got into business and entrepreneurship and coaching was like kind of right on the heels of Tim Ferriss really blowing up and talking a lot about morning routines and things like that, right? Where it's like, wake up, do your meditation, do your gratitude journal, drink your AG1 and all these different things. And not to shit on any one of these or in any order because there's so many different components, but I think it's such an important piece for everybody to look at their life through the lens of like, what is something that might be missing in terms of my overall approach that could bring more peace into my day? Because when you get people who are type A, who are really wired, typically those who seek out coaching and struggle with some of these things, running through walls and being productive is the easy part. It's default.
Yeah, right.
Absolute default, right? And so on one hand, when I got started, it was great. I would wake up at 4 a.m, drink like 3 coffees, and I would write 3,000 words, send out to magazines, and that was that. And we've talked about this individually as well. I'm like, well, that lens no longer serves me. I've got a daughter. Right?
Oh, I was going to say, more importantly, you have to be more present. You can't live in that world because now you have something. You're like, now the reason I'm doing all this shit is for her. It's not for my own sake of like social influence anymore. Now
Clout,
it's like, now it's like I have this reason that I want to earn money and take care of things and be, stable and all these things. But what does that matter if I spend all my day in front of a computer and I'm not here with her watching her grow up?
That's exactly it. And that shift that's happened in me, kind of building on this, is like now in the morning, what do? I wake up and I do my meditation right away because I will skip it once the wheels start going. I'll do a little bit of gratitude and I'll get some movement and try to avoid any inputs in my brain so I can, slow down, be present, and build that as a daily structure.
I like that. Like reducing inputs. That's a really good way to put it. Because you're right, that external influence. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can all agree that there are so many inputs now in so many different areas that just calming the noise and being able to be focused and present is exponentially harder than it used to be. I've been rereading Mastery by Robert Greene. And, so much of what he talks about in that is like the ability to have a clear-cut focus and be present and go into that deep work, right? In the deep work, we can talk about Cal Newport's work and all these different things.
Oh, yeah.
And with all like so much dysregulation in terms of habits and behavior, I believe comes down to a lack of presence and always chasing something else, right? And so that routine and these little things that we work on they sound kind of corny because they've
Hmm.
been blown up so much on social media, but finding out what these things are for you and being able to pull back and just have that glimmer or that second to pause before we do something reactive in nature. Like that's the one thing that meditation has taught me, is to have that one pause and almost look down at Eric before he does something is absolutely like transformational in terms of habits and behavior.
Yeah, and I really like that you brought up the modern environment, because we have to use these things like polyvagal theory, and we have to do the neuroscience, because we have to have the science, because we've actually, in our modern environment, these are not things that we don't know intrinsically. That's the best part. It's like, if we look at
Yeah.
traditions, whether they come from religion, whether they come from tradition, whatever they are, those things were already in place to do this thing. But we lost those along the way. And so now we have to be like, oh, let me prove to you why you need to do these things. One of the things that I was thinking about, and it's actually, I have a post coming up on social media about it. It's kind of weird, is like the blessing, grace. I'm not a religious guy, so like, but I was thinking about it, and I said, that was a way, we eat, most people get home, like, right, we're running the kids to sports or whatever, get home, got to eat real quick because we got to get everyone's homework done, da, 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 da. So it's like we just rush in, and then people wonder why they finish their meal and they want to go sit on the couch and snack. It's like, the whole point of eating is the idea of rest and digest, right? To calm. And if you eat in 5 minutes, then all of a sudden it's like, well, then I have to pause now to try to not eat the dessert or whatever it is I'm trying to do. That blessing, that grace, was a moment to be present, was a moment to come into the room, be grounded, start that process of calming your nervous system from the day, and then you go into eating, and hopefully eat a little bit slower, eat a little bit. And then when you're done, all those hormones, all those signals that are going to flood your body and say you're full, made it through, and you're calm.
Yes. And that process normally takes what, about 20
20
minutes for those
minutes,
signals to
yeah.
really go through?
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, think how fast most of us eat. I mean, it's eating is, and that's the thing, is I think modern day, everything's an inconvenience. So, we were talking about like high performers, like one of the big things, I started working with a very, very powerful politician, and not politician in particular, but works in government. And I was like, could you take a walk during the day? He's like, I feel so guilty. I was like, all right, so how about this? What if I told you that you taking that 10-minute walk will make you more productive in your day? Would that then entice you? I'm like, okay. I was like, just try it. You don't have to do anything crazy. I want you to take a walk around the block, or even in the office building. Just take a little walk, right?
Yeah.
And it's the honest to God truth is that it will improve your productivity 100%. Like, it absolutely will. But those people need that reminder that, like, taking 15 minutes from work isn't the problem. You can actually improve your ability to focus and be present in your work and do a better job. It's like talking to mothers about, like, working on your own fitness is going to make you a better mother, because you'll be able to be present and not, like, just freaked out at the kids all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those small moments where it creates a paradigm shift in terms of our perspective and how we want to show up. And walking was one of those small things too that we reinforce consistently within our coaching,
Oh,
because
sure.
I mean, think of all the great thinkers over time. They talk about walking, being in green space, not having inputs. Maybe they have a notebook and take a couple notes directly with them. But when we live in a world with so many signals coming at us at all times, most of us have plenty of domain knowledge in whatever that we do to be incredibly successful. What prevents us from being successful is, yes, on one hand, implementation, but also the space to have strategy, right?
Yeah. Space is a big one, because I
It
think people
is.
don't spend much time thinking. Right. I spend
They
too
don't.
much time thinking.
Yeah. Or
I should
thinking
probably
about
spend more
thinking.
time working, but because that's my trap, is I can easily get into the thinking space and not the doing. Right. And so it's a balance. It's between being and doing, right? Like, we have to find a balance between the two. But yeah, I mean, I think I read something that Charles Darwin only worked 4 hours a day, and the rest was filled with walks. He had a walking path around his house. He would just walk, walk, walk. And that's where he would think. Then he would go do. And, like, he had an hour and a half in the morning, another hour and a half session in the afternoon, and then an hour session at night. And that was his day. And that is not too far off from Cal Newport's thing, right? Like, you need
Yeah.
concentrated time to do deep work, and then take space, recoup, go in and do your deep work.
Yeah. And I believe some of that work by Cal Newport stems from the violin studies that highlighted that, like, the importance of sleep, but also we really only have 2 to 3 focused 60 to 90-minute work blocks that we can really performing at our peak throughout the
Yeah.
day. And I mean, this is kind of like an old structure at this point, now that we've seen like shifting dynamics in work environments, and I guess somewhat of a, kind of pivot back to the office a little bit more. But, think industrial revolution, working a 9 to 5, putting those hours in, regardless of productivity, it's putting that work in those particular hours. And with some careers, people are still more or less paid by the duration that they are at work, not necessarily the outputs or how efficient they are with that work. And that same trap often happens when it comes to things like fitness, right? It's
Mhm.
like instead of focusing on what's going to be maximally effective with the time that we do have, it's just more, cut harder, harder,
Yeah.
harder, right? And just trying to, again, math our way out of an emotional problem
Yeah,
and a
and
human psychology problem.
it's always an hour workout or a 90-minute workout, right? And there's always a certain, and it's like, but like why? And as I get older, and I have to like now I have to kind of. It's weird because I really liked when I wasn't doing as much jiu-jitsu, I wasn't doing any kind of striking MMA stuff, or even when I was and I was younger and I could recover. I loved like really high intensity stuff. I loved dog crap training, like stuff like that. I love
Yeah.
like Jordan Peterson's stuff. Like I think it's I love like just like balls to the wall, like heavy, low reps, like um
Yep. I'm a
and
lower up guy
long
too.
workouts, like 2 hour workouts, whatever. Now it's like I'm going in, I'm doing like my mobility, my prehab, and now I've like kind of split up my workouts. So I work out a little bit every day because it's what I can handle now, just because I know that I'm doing jujitsu in the morning. Some nights, like tonight, I'm coaching jujitsu tonight, and then I'm going to go kickboxing afterwards. Like I can't do an hour and a half, like ball busting workout where I'm crushed now. Like, and it's just, and so like, we don't think about like seasons or like, it's like, oh no, this is just what you do regardless.
Yeah. It's one of those things too. And with a lot of clients that I see, and you can probably relate to this to some extent, where we have people that are 45, 50 running back the same programming, the same methodologies that they try to apply at 25, and they wonder why it doesn't work. And, I sit down with somebody, Jeb, and I'm like, okay, so your work is multiple times more stressful than it was before. You're a parent, you have all these other obligations. And you mentioned stress being the biggest thing. And so at 25, you're the most physiologically resilient person that you will probably be in this life, and you're trying to apply the same strategies now while the entire environment has shifted. That's why it feels like you're doing everything right and know what to do, but you're not getting results, because this approach no longer fits where you're at right now. And so I want to piggyback that into stress,
Yeah.
how systemic stress plays into a lot of the decisions that we make around food. Some people, right, we get tired after a long day, we get this habit, pretty soon it's a nightcap, we have a couple drinks every night, voila, alcohol dependency shows up or
Mm-hmm.
something else, right? And food is something that is more available than anything else, at least here in the US for the most part, right? And that becomes an easy thing that a lot of people lean into. Let's dig into that. Let's dig into how we have to emotionally regulate and change some of these habits and patterns, particularly when the stress that we go through now is probably a lot different than what it was years ago.
Yeah. So the first thing that I always kind of come back to is this concept within polyvagal of like story before or state before story. So a lot of times we have this idea that like I didn't do the thing. Well, okay, I'm lazy, and then we just go that, and then that's why I feel so anxious, or why I feel so tired, or why I feel so. And it's like, do you really think that your psychology and from neuroscience standpoint, we know that like even when we make a decision, seconds possibly behind when that thing was the synapses connected in our brain. Do we really think that we're going to change our physiological state by the thing that's following it, right? Rather than that, can we figure out what state am I in? So, oh, I overate. Okay, instead of saying like, oh, it's because I'm a lazy piece of shit, because first of all, no one we work with is lazy. They're all like super successful. Like we know that they're not lazy. So rather than that, be like, well, what drove that behavior? How was I feeling? And it doesn't have to be like, I like the emotion wheel, I like to get in that. But for a lot of my clients who are, real type A, especially the dudes, like they don't want to get into that, right? Like, and it's fine. I think they should, but maybe they don't know how to access it. So we
Yeah.
stick with the nervous system state. And it's funny because you said running through walls. So the real simple way I lean it out is I do like animal things. So like if you're green, that's like, it's like pack animal. You're a pack of wolves. You're with your boys. You're running around. You feel safe because you got your crowd. You're playing. You're having fun. You're social. That's the green zone, right? Then we get into that like yellow zone, which there's two parts of that, right? There's the bear, just like I'm going to crush through, and that is actually a really important place to be. Our ideal like productivity or opportunity, whether it's in athletics, whether it's in the gym, is going to be kind of in that pro-social bear mode, right? A little bit of wolf, a little bit
Yep.
of bear, right? You want a little bit of aggression. You want to be in that sympathetic amplified state. And then but then it can, that aggression, the good aggression can turn to agitation. And then the next thing down is we hit the deer phase, right? Where it's like Now you're just like twitchy, oh God, what's going on? And then you run. And that's the anxiety phase.
Yeah.
And then the last phase, which is like the lowest, evolutionary part, that like reptilian, is like the turtle or the possum, where it's just play dead. And that's where it's like you've been running as ragged for so long, and then finally it's like I say, when you're like, I just need to go get under the covers and hide for like 3 days, right? That's shut down. And so if we understand, okay, here's where I was in that place, that's why I did this thing, then all of a sudden, it takes the guilt and shame away, because this is not a moral issue. This is not a weakness issue. This is literally your biology determining your decision making. Can I change? So when I recognize that state, can I change it? I'm feeling super anxious. Okay, well, what does that look like? How can I bring myself back? Or I'm feeling shut down, right? And the impetus, my body is saying, just go lay down. So you know what you do? You do the opposite. You go for a walk. I'm feeling, isolated. All right, call a friend, right? And so the hardest thing is that when we feel this biological need, we have to do something to bring us out of that. And again, that's where the breathing stuff comes in. We can use breath to upregulate or downregulate. And the easy thing with breath is you always got it. So what I tell people is like, can we start to be aware of these states? Can we start to be, and then we can shift the story, because now you're recognizing, oh, of course I want to go to food. I'm absolutely exhausted. I have nothing right now to like bring me out of this feeling. I need to like, this is soothing me, or this is amplifying me. Can I do something else to take the place of that to give me the same result? Do I have the tools? Let me build that toolbox. And if you can start to manage that state first, then go make the decision. Because I guarantee if you can get yourself into a calm, regulated state, all of a sudden now all that cognitive stuff, all the brain shit starts to work, rather than your body being like, I don't care what your brain says. Like, where's what we're doing?
Yeah. I mean, that's powerful. That's really powerful. When we talk about the nervous system and we talk about these particular types of people that are typically pretty amped up, right? And then they just get into these decision-making frameworks. What is your view then on things that amp us up more, right? More caffeine, more stimulants, more pre-workout? Like, how do you factor in these other tools that are, one, so popular to kind of mask fatigue in a chronically underslept society? And is that something we need to consider when it comes to overall better decision-making and, frankly, stress resilience?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Like, look, let's be honest. Like, we live, whether I maybe don't like it, but we all have to participate in this society that is built for really, really wealthy, powerful people to make people who have less think that they need to be doing everything to produce more for them. Like, that's
100%. That's a great way of putting it.
It's not great, but it's reality. So you have to survive it within that. Now, productivity is always applauded, right? And so when you're run ragged, what do people say? Well, let's just, this is what the Adderall's for. I'm on Adderall. I don't want to be. I hate everything about the fact that but my brain is not meant to operate in this kind of society. I like to think, I will float all over the place and completely forget these are the notebooks on this side. Here's my planner on this side, not to mention my calendar app and all these. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I'm
laughing because I got like mine right here, and I got another one down here.
Yeah. And it's like, but that's what I have to do. And that's, and even with them is I just started on Adderall, I think like a year. I took it, like, the funny thing is they put me on it when I was like a kid. I'm 47. So I was, 35 years ago or whatever. I was on it for like a year or whatever. But it's just recently, as finally talking to my therapist, is like, I don't want to, but she's like, listen, you've done all the things. You've done all the lifestyle things. You've done all the productivity, everything. Sometimes, and it's like, I could bitch about the system or but I have to make a living. So yeah, that's a reality. And so now the advantage is for a lot of people like me who have ADHD or these things is it actually throughout the day, you're amplified, but it actually helps. I sleep better. Weirdly, I think it's because it kind of actually it's just enough stimulus. I take a very low dose, very enough stimulus to kind of keep me moving. And then at the end of the night, I can chill out and do my thing. And I'm not racked with all these like weird things popping around in my brain at random times. But that said, is like, I read something that the Industrial Revolution, a lot of that was predicated on on coffee, because up until that point, the only way that people could safely hydrate without getting sick was with alcohol. So if you look historically, through Middle Ages, like people drank alcohol from morning until night. And so of course they went to bed when the sun went down, right? all of a sudden
Yeah.
with coffee and tea, with the trade, they started bringing tea over, and then when obviously the Americas, they brought coffee over to Europe. People were like, well, now we can use this electric light. We can stay up. We can work. Guess what? Now we're going to add shifts to our work days. Now we have these machines. And we talked about that 9 to 5, right? Why do we work 9 to 5? It's just because of shift work. Like in schools are all based on shift. It was all based on like, we're going to do this. We're going to get, and now we can get a third shift in. Oh, we can increase productivity. So
Yeah.
these are not new tools, and they contribute to a lot of the stress for sure. But I think like anything else is it's how do you manage it? And for me, like on the weekends, I don't take my Adderall, which is like, I'm super tired when I wake up on Saturdays. Trust me, it's
Yeah.
not great, but it's like, at least it gives my system a little bit of a break. And I don't know if that matters, but to me, I think it does. So how do you manage that? How do you, are you taking these things just because like it's as needed, or is this a thing that is like now your baseline? Because we talk about alcohol dependency, right? Stimulants, the same thing, is like you
Yeah.
need more and more to get the same out of them. So yeah, so I think it's like anything. There's downsides and upsides, and everyone just has to kind of decide for themselves what that looks like. But they also have to be aware that like, yeah, if you're getting run ragged and your only option is to like let me like just push through, it's like, well, at some point, whether you're taking your stimulants or not, you're gonna have a moment where you just crash.
It happens. It builds that crash for you.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I constantly reevaluate. And I mean, I'll even say personally, right? It's like, because there's so much information in all of this, and I'm thinking both in terms of myself and also like, how does it apply to my clients?
Mhm.
It can be easy to get wrapped up and just have this kind of add to the overall like stress load of all the information that's out there, And I think it just comes down to looking at things that we're taking in, like, why am I consuming this?
Yeah.
Is it something now that's, again, for a baseline, or something that's going to give me a short-term jump? And again, like, I can drink coffee all day. We were talking before, like, spend so much time writing in coffee shops. All of a
Yep.
sudden I've had 3 coffees, like, oh shit. Well, I don't need pre-workout today, but if that becomes a ritual, that becomes another issue, because on that physiological level, anything that fires you up in that state is going to have a concurrent rise in terms of cortisol. And by extension, if we're chronically underslept, overstimulated based on our work, based on our phones, all of these different components, it's all feeding into that same loop that contributes to potentially reactive decisions we're making later in the day, when that willpower, when that energy and that battery finally starts to run out.
Yeah. And I think you really hit on something there, is because like, if that is how you're running, like,
Yeah.
that's all of a sudden you have the release, and it's like, well, now I need something. I'm crushed. Like, and again, it could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be shopping, it could be sex. Like everyone, again, there's a running narrative where like now fitness people want to be like, oh, it's like, my favorite, not to go off on a tangent, but it's like when everyone's like, oh, people compare sugar to cocaine. No one ever sucked dick for sugar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
Or
if
have
we
they?
want to, and if we want to compare moral dilemmas, we did create a transatlantic slave trade for sugar. So I don't know, maybe that's worse. I'd say so.
Yeah.
So, people discount the drive for it because it's cheap and it's available. Yes. Is it the same? No. Does it spark dopamine? Yes. And so it's not the same, but the same behavioral adaptations that people use these things for is the same, whether that intense addictive behavior is the same. The behavioral addiction resonates the same. And people are like, oh, well, it doesn't ruin their lives. I was like, I work with a lot of people who can't think of anything else except for what they're going to eat or not eat the next like 30 minutes, hour, day. It consumes them wholly, which is the same exact thing as an addict who's searching for their next fix. Like, it's exactly the same. It just, my therapist says it really well. She says, if it's like you have a pie, and if anything's taking up too much of the pie, it's a problem. We just want to reduce the volume. It's not going to be gone, but like, can we take and make it just a smaller piece of the pie? That's it.
It's really powerful. It's not expecting perfection. It's being able to pull back and almost reevaluate where you allocate the focus.
And we do that daily, right? Like, you and I talk about this all the time, and we talk about productivity and business and all these things. It's like different seasons, different things. It's like, okay, like, we talked about like when you have staffing issues. Oh, now I have to allocate financial resources or time resources. What do I want out of my life? And we've talked about this. You're like, I want more time. So I'm willing to put money somewhere else in order to buy back that time. Great. So other people might be different. And that's just figuring out how you want to allocate those resources.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things across the board. And that brings up thoughts of people, even, for example, having questions on coaching, right? It's, can I afford this? Can I invest in this? Can I do this thing because it costs X, Y, and Z? And sometimes what the question really needs to be is like, well, This problem right now is leading us to having this conversation. What is that already costing you? Do you want
Yeah.
to save that time and collapse that time? Do you want to fix this problem? Do you want to build this new skill set that allows you to open up that space in your mind to focus on these other things that are probably getting pushed away because of maybe your thoughts about food or exercise or your body, right? And it's always an individual recalibration on these different components and then working on a journey with one that is, or creating a picture more or less in a lifestyle that's fully congruent with the person that you want to become, not necessarily with the habits that have led you here in the past. And that's the hard part about making these changes, because shifts that we make in terms of health, in terms of wellness, in terms of our habits in relation to those, they do bleed over into everything else in our life. And sometimes we can't necessarily see that when we're so caught up maybe in one particular area, and getting that ball rolling is just difficult.
And I think you really hit that on the head there, is that because it's not, there's quantitative data in that, like, oh, I'm lifting more, I have lower body fat. But the qualitative data, I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I've had who said, like, my relationship with my husband got better. My relationship with my kids got better. I decided the job I was in actually sucked, and I left and went and did something else, and I'm happier. Like that stuff, like, maybe you can't measure that on a chart, but it's so much important. And I think you're like me. I know you're like me. I don't have a problem charging a decent amount of money for this, or telling people, like, and I'm like, hey, if you don't want coaching, it's fine. But, like, because I spend an inordinate amount of money every year on coaching. It's important to me because I don't have the bandwidth to do all. I mean, as simple as, like, programming. I could program my own stuff. Probably not.
Yeah.
I definitely couldn't do it as well as my coach does. But I just also don't want to. I'll spend too much time on it. I'll change every little exercise every 2 days. Like, it's just not worth it.
It's amazing how that happens, even with us knowing, like, listen, we should focus on these same consistent exercises.
Yeah.
And we can't help but fucking tinker with it. Like, after one workout, like, let's make this change, right? And I obviously believe that, like, it's more important for coaches to have coaches, not just from, like, an intellectual integrity component. Like, if you're not willing to get a coach and you're a coach, do you actually believe in what you're doing? Or are you just doing it because it's in vogue and everybody became a coach in 2020 when their gym shut down? You tell me. I don't know. But we all have these blind spots. And I think inherently for a lot of coaches, when we start to program our own things, it's more difficult actually to stick with it, because you start to think about, how does this apply maybe to my clients? Or how can I change this? And, like, how can I sequence this differently? And so for us to maximize what we can actually do from a physical standpoint and to probably get the best possible results and the best knowledge, we need feedback based on what we program and where we need to improve directly from our clients, that part. But also having a coach, somebody who can find out our own blind spots, who can challenge maybe some of our thought patterns and our habits and help us elevate, is absolutely crucial to that development.
Yeah, we need an objective voice. Like, we're never going to be objective with ourselves. And that's the thing I talk with clients all the time about, is, like, we talk about this, like, inner critic, or the inner rebel, or, like, these different parts of our psyche that like, and it always comes down to that thing of, like, would you talk to your best friend the way you try to talk to yourself? And people are like, oh, it's like, no. It's like, yeah, okay. But also, don't judge that. Don't judge that. Like, but just understand that is not truth. Who is it? Eckhart Tolle. I love that he always says, people think that their thoughts are them. And it's amazing, because when it comes to food or exercise, people will be like, oh, I had this thought and I'm a terrible person. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I had a thought the other day of running someone over in traffic. I didn't do it. Like, the thought
doesn't make you a murderer.
No, it's like these thoughts pop into our, like, they're nothing. They're just like little, like segments of information that just come through, and you're willing to let that one go. You're not like, oh, I'm a sociopath, I wanted to kill that. You didn't want to kill that person. It was just like a weird thought that popped in your head. But yet they say, I wanted chocolate cake, so therefore I'm weak. And I'm like, but everyone wants chocolate cake. Like, that's
fucking delicious.
Yeah,
like
it's
chocolate
like,
cake,
It's like, how do we? And so, yeah, it's very easy to fall into that trap, and those parts of us are always kind of operating, trying, and it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about trying to make us feel safe. That's it.
That's what it comes down to. Yep, we're trying to find that baseline, and I think when we approach it from that lens, you develop a lot more empathy for yourself, but also the people around you. That's something that's definitely shifted in me over the years working with clients, and just frankly being a human being. Yeah. It's like the amount of empathy I have, and I'm like, this quote's kind of cheesy, but it's like, be curious, not judgmental.
Dude, it's not cheesy at all. It's the basis of my life. Every bit of it now. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, we have to look at that perspective, yes, with other people, but also, how are we judging ourselves based on our thoughts, based on maybe one mistake that we made once in our life, and now that's something that we carry around for forever, or some vice or issue that we had previously that we've worked incredibly hard to overcome, and we had that slip up, which happens inevitably, right? And it's like, instead of thinking, I'm a terrible person, I suck, I failed, I have no discipline, I have no willpower, it could be interesting. What led me back to this path? And
Yeah.
what can we do differently next time?
I mean, honestly, like the funny thing is you say that and you're like, oh, it's kind of cheesy. And it sounds like kind of hippy dippy and like passive. It's the hardest thing that anybody can do. Like, I firmly believe that. Like, curiosity was something that was, I mean, I've been curious about the greater world. The funny thing
Yeah.
is, I didn't apply that to people as much. So I'd be like, that guy's a douche. Now, I'm a pretty good judge of character, so 90% of the time that is true. But like, I'll still, if like someone like that guy's a douche, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go up and I'm just going to kind of like learn about him and talk to him and be like, there's something in there. There's always something, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it usually my thing with people that I don't get on with is that they just don't have self-awareness. Like, if people are like, they say one thing and I'm like, you do realize that you're acting completely the opposite of this person that you're claiming to be, but all right, whatever. And I have a big problem with that, which I need to, that's a me problem. It's not a them problem. So,
Yeah.
but you know, it's one of those things. It's like, even like influencers, right? Is I would get so mad about these people doing, and then I started being like, dude, like, first of all, they're just trying to put some food on the table or do it. Like, they're not like actively coming after, like they don't like, why do you give a shit? Like, it's like, and it's hard because again, we see the damage it sometimes causes, you know, on other people.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, they've always been there. There's always been some, you know, shyster. There's always been some, you know, charlatan out there. There always will be. And human beings eat that shit up. They love it. I mean, we love to support that. So it's not going anywhere. So I can, you know, and again, I see in the fitness industry, people are just like so like built on this idea of like, oh, I have to like take these people down. And in that pursuit, they're acting the exact same way as those people. And to me now, it's just like, just you know, just let it go. It's like not worth it. But that curiosity, I think, is the biggest thing that anyone can focus on.
And you know what? You hit this perfectly on the head with your podcast, Food on the Mind. And I listened to this the other day, and it was why we trade integrity for approval. And it's something that I've seen so much. You mentioned in the evidence-based fitness space, right? I would say we're both evidence-based. Like, we don't just
100%.
throw shit at the wall and hope that it sticks. Yeah. But we see this huge polarization. And I've only seen this grow and expand over the years, where it's like on one side we've got pure influencers, and like on the far side we've got like pure researchers, and then it's coaches in the middle, like, okay, well, I have to learn how to market somewhat like an influencer because they win that game, but then I also have to be high integrity of here. And what happens is we get these polar opposite sides, and it makes it very difficult for the consumer to piece together what information works and what's actually relevant. But from the coach's perspective or the practitioner's perspective, they're really not too different. In the way that we are trying to get approval, maybe from these other folks on the evidence-based side, by calling people out, by doing this, by doing that, and taking a sensationalist approach, when in reality, there's so much gray area. And frankly, from a research perspective, you can almost find research to disprove almost every other research and just end your way in some type of circle. What I mean by all this is that, like, what we have to focus on is finding what that middle ground is. Because if we simply operate in a way to try to please maybe our colleagues or those who we view to be mentors or people we looked up to growing up, we really just keep the same cycle going, which makes it so difficult for people to make actual change.
Well, I think, you know, we can both attest to this. Is one of the things as you kind of grow in this industry and you have been around for a little bit and people know you and you know them, all of the things that impress you, like, you get to know everybody and you're like, not nearly as impressive as I thought.
Totally.
Nothing like kind of crushed my view of PhDs more than the fitness industry and getting to know a lot of them. I have friends that are absolutely brilliant. Some that aren't PhDs, but a lot of them that are PhDs are just genius, like, or, you know, graduate people, whatever. But I've met a lot that are dumber than, you know, someone with an 8th grade education. And I was so confused by this. And I talked to friends of mine in academia and they're like, no, a PhD. Now, granted, I still think it's amazing. Like, anyone who can go through that.
Totally.
But a lot of it is, there's two factors. Is like, do you have the perseverance to get through it? And of course, it depends on the PhD too, because there's some of them that, like, I don't care. Like, if you want a PhD in electrical engineering, you're going to be one of the smartest humans on earth. Like, there's no way around that. But then the other thing is, like, do you have the money to be able to do it? Because you ain't making shit for those 12 years. So do you have that?
Yeah.
And then again, we see this, like, to kind of think about that, like, influencer loop, is we've seen the evidence-based people use the same tactics of, like, they'll say a study and then I'll question it and they'll be like, oh, but you know, I'm like, well, you missed this entire, you know, piece of that, and it doesn't mean what you said. I mean, well, I was just making a point to this, and it's like, you're obfuscating information in order to trick people into believing your biased view and then using research to back that up. that is the exact thing you're supposedly railing against. Like, there's no integrity there. And I believe like social media, social influence has decimated that. Now we have, obviously there's lots of other problems within academia and the way publishing journals work and the way that,
Yeah, we can go on and on
yeah,
on
peer
that one.
review. But at the end of the day is when people start getting like, people like when I say this, I'll say more of that. That's a problem.
Yeah, you look at the data. I said this post, let's repeat it again. And pretty
Yeah.
soon it becomes a self perpetuating cycle of like, we do not want to go back against something that we said previously because then.
Yeah. I mean, Ripito still holding on to like a gallon of milk and starting strength. He refuses to admit that maybe
Ass
this
to
is the
grass,
best.
baby. I don't care about your L4, L5. Here we go. So, Jeb, something that we talked about before we hopped on the air was how our actions bleed over and impact those who are around us. Can we dig into that a little bit more, particularly as it relates to emotional eating?
Yeah, I mean, it really relates to behavior in general. So, fascinating thing about human beings is co-regulation. So you have a daughter, right? And so when she was really little, one of the things that they've kind of observed in young children is they don't have a fully functional autonomic nervous system. So they borrow that of our parents. And when we look at pro-social behavior, when we look at that top of the line kind of vagus nerve activation, what we call ventral vagal state, that is what we call pro-social. So there's little simple things to identify, right? Like your gaze is kind of wide, your facial muscles, your jaw muscles are very relaxed, you can smile, you can have conversation, it's very smooth, and that bleeds. So our co-regulation is basically a bidirectional thing. So the way that the state that I'm in, the state that you're in influence each other, right? And so
Yeah.
that's where that, like, the people that you are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself most with. It's not really about like what they do, it's how they make you feel. So if you have this group of people and they make you feel safe and they make you feel comfortable and you're able to be yourself and you're able to be social, like, that makes you feel great. And that is going to allow you to be more in that state to make the decisions that work towards your goals, that make the decisions that help you to be the person you want to be. If you're around people who are constantly agitated, right? Like, with the bucket of crabs kind of thing, it's like they just pull each other down. It has nothing to do with they are jealous. Like, everyone's like, oh, they're haters. It's like, no. They're in this nervous system state. And when you put a bunch of people that are in that same one, they're going to co-regulate and keep themselves locked in that, because that is how we feed each other. And so if you've got 6 people and 4 of them are like that, they're going to bring the other 2 down. It's not going to go the other way. And so that's where, like, curating, and I don't like this whole like cut every person out of your life that like says something mean to you or whatever it is. Like, no, relationships take work. Like, you have to work and you have to be honest, and you have to create an honest, open line of communication to tell that person, like, hey, what's going on? Like, you're constantly fucking, irritated. What can I do to help? How can I help you to feel better? Not like you're dragging me down. Like, no. Our jobs is not to cut everyone out because they're dragging us down. Our job is to try to lift people up, and especially as coaches. So that coaching relationship is foundational in helping people. People think that the coaching is about the program. It's not. It's about that bidirectional co-regulation. Can you make someone feel safe? Can you make them feel wanted? Can you make them feel heard? And all of a sudden, they're like that's why my clients stay with me for long after they need to work with me, because they want to, because it's like, hey, we got a great thing going here. We're like, have a great relationship. And I think if we look at all of our social interactions in that way, even going to the grocery store, rather than like every time I go to Trader Joe's in Mount Pleasant, I pull in that parking lot and I'm about to be, what is wrong with these people? Instead, just be like, you know what? Like, let me try to bring them up rather than let them bring me down.
Good luck in that parking lot.
Yeah,
It's
I
an
know.
absolute disaster. No, but that's such a great point. Habits are not necessarily taught; they're caught. Our vibe, the way that we present ourselves, it does bleed over into those different interactions. And I think being curious about what leads us to those positions is what leads us to be more introspective and improve ourselves, and by extension, improve our relationships and probably everybody else around us, by having that curiosity, by having that empathy, and by showing up differently.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's interesting you put that, because the way you like put that was like curiosity and then empathy. I really do, I'm just kind of making that connection now, but I think everyone thinks that empathy leads to the curiosity, but I think kind of the curiosity leads to the empathy is this is going to sound terrible, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's like when I would get like frustrated with people that are dumb.
Yeah.
right? Like, but all of a sudden I started looking at it from this, and I said, like, you know what? That's not their fault. That's a genetic, an environmental, an epigenetic thing that led them to make these decisions based on where they are. It's actually, I'll say to my wife, will say something, hey, they're just dumb. It's like, that's so rude. I'm like, not really. Me being non-judgmental, because it's just they don't have the capacity to understand things in a deeper level. It's fine. I shouldn't expect that of them, right? And so
Yeah.
now can I meet them where they are and say, like, all right, so cool, like, you think this thing, like, what is it about that? And be like, actually, when you say it like that, it actually makes sense. But do you mind if I offer an alternative view that might change the way that you look at that, rather than you're an idiot? And it's like, no, like, just recognize that you don't have to tell them.
Yeah. I like that. And you just made me think about this viral moment on Coldplay that's been going around, and there have been memes nonstop for a couple weeks, right? And so, for those who are listening right now, obviously there's the whole story of the CEO who was cheating on his wife with the head of the HR department, and basically got outed during a Coldplay song on the Kiss cam, right? And I was thinking about this. I'm like, yeah, I mean, listen, we can all like look at it, and there's somewhat of a like an eat the rich like component of, I think, a lot of this going viral. But I also want people to consider, despite however you feel about the infidelity and all of that stuff going on, no excuse for it, but what led them there? Just having that curiosity, what led these relationships to get to that point?
Yeah.
Like, what else crumbled in their life? I'm genuinely curious about that.
My favorite part is just that she's the head of HR. You couldn't write that. Like, the writer's room would not have come up with that. Like, that's too good. But I think
from the head of HR.
But the funny thing is I think people have that curiosity in really warped and weird ways, but they don't think about it in the regular life. Like, why is true crime such a huge thing? Right? People are fascinated with like serial killers and like unsolved deaths and like these terrible, terrible aspects of society, because it's taboo. It's so, and of course the CEO having an affair and getting caught on the Kiss cam, and it being at Coldplay. I was like, cue the 40-year-old virgin scene. Like, I mean, it's too good. It's too good a story, and it's like, yeah, of course we're fascinated by something like that. But yeah, like, to your point, it's like, and maybe nothing did crumble in their lives. Maybe they're just like, again, yeah, and maybe they're just sociopaths. Maybe didn't think about it. Like, and you have to think about like how. That's the other thing, is like, they were so brazen and so bold to be in a public place and act in that way. They didn't think about anyone else. They were like, we're not getting caught. We're untouchable. And I think that's also part of the story that people like, is these people that feel like they're untouched by society. I mean, now the guy's like suing the place. Like, come on.
Yeah, come
on,
dude,
like,
you're suing Coldplay. Good luck.
Yeah, and you're like, take some, like, this is probably a guy who preaches personal responsibility all the time, and then goes, someone caught me doing something I wasn't supposed to. That's not fair. You're like, shut up.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Well, Jeb, that's the perfect spot for us to wrap up here. But where can we learn more about you, more about your work? Where's the best way to get in touch with you? So
my website is www.foodonthemind.com. I have a podcast called Food on the Mind, Awaken Genius. Awaken Genius is kind of what I've kind of coined my model. So that's where that came in. And if you are a coach, you're interested, like, you can find me on Instagram, Jeb Stuart Johnston. I'm going to be opening up my coaching mentorship. It's not like a business mentorship. Like, we'll talk a little bit about business, but more in the aspect of like, how can you become an ideal coach in order to improve your business? Not like, I don't know anything about like funnels or any of that stuff, so don't ask me. But it's how can I improve my coaching? How can I like dial in my demographic? How can I look into character development for my niche client? Like, what can I do there? And then we go through my entire model, which is a 3-pronged approach from the physiological of nervous system intelligence, the kind of spiritual or psychological of internal conflict, and then the kind of cognitive or piece, the strategic skills, which is like just kind of the basic things you can do. And I just kind of teach people my model and like help them to make it their own. It's not about me turning out a bunch of me's. It's just about like, how can you use these things to work with clients when you feel that they're stuck. So that I'm going to be pushing some of that stuff out, because I think I'll probably start in September, when everyone's got some chill time and it's not kids trying to get back to school and vacation and all this stuff in August. So
awesome. Well, Jeb, thank you so much. It's always a great time chatting with you. It's been excellent getting to know you more recently, especially because we have so many like, friends in the industry, but it took a while for us to connect. And we were at Silverback Summit last year. We're like, dude, we live in the same city. Why aren't we hanging out? Just the amount of knowledge that I've gained from you and the perspective of the way that you approach not just business and helping your clients, but life in general has been something that's created some of those shifts in me. So thank you very
Awesome.
much. And coaches, definitely check that out. You will not be disappointed because ultimately, if you do want to build a better business, you got to have a better product and service and create those clients who love what you do. So
And
Jeb, thank you so much,
more
brother.
importantly, go to events. Because if I had to go to that event, we wouldn't have hung out, and I would have been like, I've known of Eric forever, and then I was like, dude, this guy's awesome. I was like, we got to hang out, and so we came back home, and we're like, okay, like we made it a priority. But like, you'll get friends, you'll make friends, and see people that you've known of, and then been like, oh, actually, we live in the same place. How awesome is this?
Weird. Which reminds me, I've got to buy my damn ticket
Yeah.
for
Allie was
so
already
we can roll down
Allie was
there.
texting me. He was like, wait, well, I mean, Eric's on TRT now. He definitely should be here.
Exactly.
All right, buddy.
All right, dude. I'll catch you later. Thank you.